the Indiana Fever force a game 5? Let's get into it. Now, what made the Indiana Fever force this game 5? What's different than the last game? What happened that is different? One, it was more than Lexi Hall that was involved. In the last game, Lexi Hall was the star of the game. She was fully involved. She was on it. This last game, where they forced the game number 5, it was more than Lexi. It was Kelsey. It was Boston. It was Peddy. It was Sims. It was Howard. They all were effective in what they were doing on the court. What made them effective? If you look at the last game the Fever lost, and in the game that they won, okay, this last game that they won, you can see the difference. They came in with this last game full throttle. The last game that they lost, they didn't come in that way. How you come into a game sets the pace. It really does. What you do, how you perform in the first like 20, just say 15 minutes of a game is how you're going to be, and how you set the pace. And so this last game, where the Indiana Fever forced a fifth game in the semifinals, is because they were all in it not to lose. Okay? They had confidence in the shooting. They were able to just hold off the Aces with their defense. Yeah, the Aces made baskets. Yes, Wilson scored a lot of points, and she's gonna do that. She's tall. She's gonna do that. Okay? But despite what Asia Wilson did, it was the other players that the Indiana Fever focused on. They wanted to make sure that Jackie Young didn't make an exuberant amount of points. They wanted to make sure that Chelsea Gray didn't make a lot of points. They wanted to make sure that they held up other parts of the team, of their opponents, and they did that. If we look at the quarters, okay, the first half was clearly the Indiana Fever. Okay, so again, it wasn't just the first quarter or the second quarter. They set the pace for the game, and at halftime they were up. Okay, and then in the third quarter, Vegas tried to make a little bit of a run. It didn't work for very long because the Indiana Fever came back fighting. They didn't want to lose, and because of their defense, because of their accuracy in their shooting and getting buckets, which is really important. Okay, because of how they pass the ball, because of their eye on the ball and their eye on the players. Okay, this is how they won the game. And most importantly, the Indiana Fever were more aggressive. Fourth quarter, it was 21 Vegas and it was 23 Indiana. They ended with a score of 94, the Indiana Fever, and 83 for Vegas. Kelsey Mitchell, all right, we're going to go to this. Kelsey Mitchell scored 25 points. Aliyah Boston scored 24 points. Odyssey Sims scored 18 points. And then we have Hull, we have Howard, and we have Peddy, who scored 7 points apiece. All right? And Boston had also, how many? 14 rebounds. Okay? So this is how they won the game. It was a team effort, and everybody stepped up. See, in basketball, especially if you're in the semifinals trying to get to the finals, you can't be hesitant when shooting the ball. You can't be timid. You can't back down from your opponents. You can't, just like be, just laissez faire with what you're doing on the court. You got to go after it. You got to be aggressive. You got to be gritty. You got to go up in that paint and take it like it's yours. But you got to do all of this without fouling your opponent. Okay, without fouling your opponent. And I think the Indiana Fever were successful in this particular win that can fuel them in Game 5. And as far as the aces, you have Wilson scoring 31 points. Okay, that's a given. She's going to like score those points. She's tall. She can make those points, right? Then it was Young scored 18. All right, okay. And then Gray scored 12. Everybody else was in low one or single digit numbers. Okay, it was only single digits. It was those three players that stepped up for that team, but none of the other players stepped up in terms of being significant. On the other hand, Indiana Fever, you had a number of players, more players stepping up and scoring more points. So there you go. So I think the Fever have a prescription for the Aces if they'll use it in Game 5. But this game, it tells us the Indiana Fever can do it. They could win this semifinals and go on to the finals. It can happen. But in order for them to do it, they got to be on point. They can't be making mistakes. They can't be fouling their opponent. They can't be lackadaisical. They can't be, just, laissez faire. They can't be just going onto the court humdrum. They got to come out fighting. They got to come out punching. They got to come out deliberate. They got to come out like, you know what? This is going to be our court. So, again, this is the way you win a basketball game. And the Indiana Fever show that they can do it with this win. That gives them the advantage to go on and to hang in there for Game 5. So, you know what? And check this out. Fast break points, 15 for the Fever, 6 for the Aces. Fouls, 24 for Aces and 17 for the Fever. Rebounds, 22 for the Aces and 34 for the Fever. Free throws, 8 out of 11 for the Aces and 26 out of 34 for the Fever. Okay? See, what happened with the Aces is that as the Indiana Fever were doing their job in producing, the Aces became frustrated. There were no special whistles. There were no, getting away with stuff. And that made a difference. That made a big difference. It's amazing when you play a clean basketball game as opposed to a dirty basketball game. And when the refs are doing their job, it's amazing what can happen, right? The Indian Fever took this game. Now it's 2-2, and they go on to the fifth game. Let me know in the comment section what you thought about this game and what your thoughts are about the game to come for the fifth game of the semifinals. Because it's going to be either going to get it or they're not. I'm hoping that they're going to get it. So my name is Barbara, around the WNBA. If you haven't already, subscribe. In other sports. Love to have you over here. And also give me a thumbs up because that helps. And tap the bell so you can be notified of new content. So go Fever, peace, and blessings.